last and final speaker for the day is Alyssa Hu. Alyssa is a PhD student in the Department of Statistics at Penn State University, and Alyssa will be speaking to us about computational thinking with data, engaging in data exploration, data analysis, and data communication. So let's welcome Alyssa.
All right, thank you so much, Tiffany, and thank you all for having me here today. So again, my name is Alyssa, and I am working with Dr. Hatfield and Dr. Beckman at Penn State University. And so we are all part of the Statistics and Data Science Education Research Lab. So that is the perspective that I am coming from with this talk. So just a brief overview. So the talk title was Computational Thinking with Data, right? So I'll break down those two pieces. So computational thinking, depending on who you ask, there's slight variety in how we define it, right? There's diverse set of approaches amongst researchers, and there's a lot of frameworks, a lot of thought that's gone into really operationalizing it. And so given that we have a very short time here today, I'm going to quickly summarize some of the things that we notice in the frameworks. And you'll see that abstraction and computational tools are two things that we see across all of them, but there are certainly many other themes as well. And so in our study, we will really be focusing on the ways of thinking individuals are employing when they use those computational tools to problem solve, right? These are certainly some aspects and themes related to problem solving. But as we all know, today we're here to talk about data, right, and data science. And so in considering the different types of data that we have now, especially the contemporary forms of data, we'll just treat data as any collectible and recordable information that's embedded within a context. That's something we've heard about today, right, the meaning and value of context. And so we'll really think about, in this study, sort of three pieces or three actions that we can do with data, including the exploration piece. So this might be, importing the data into some system and then inspecting it. And then we'll also look at the analysis piece, which is more shifting towards that context and reasoning. So maybe we're aggregating over values in a column to understand something about the data. And finally, the communication piece, which we've also heard about today, really how we can make sense of that data and convey that to others, or maybe even to ourselves as we learn about it. And of course, these can interact. So in combining those two pieces, right, we are interested in investigating the connection between those two. And so our question was about what similarities and differences do we observe among individuals as computational thinking as they engage with data in this way. So a very brief overview of methods here. So in our study, we had 3 undergraduate students, we had 3 graduate students, and 1 professional. And they were all in statistics or data science, and we had them do a 2-stage interview process, essentially. So the first one was task-based. We had them do some interpretation of a visualization and recreating estimates. We also had them create their own visualization, as well as brainstorm questions about the data. About a week later, we had them come back and do a more semi-structured interview, which was really reflecting on the first part. So you'll notice that this is sort of more qualitative approach. And so we recorded these interviews, we transcribed them, and then engaged in coding. I guess here there's a double meaning of coding, not just their literal programming coding, but also our coding of their work. And so just to give a very brief overview of the results and things that were interesting, the themes that we looked at in discussing that similarities and differences. A very brief summary here are we really looked into their thinking through trade-offs. So participants, how they thought about like the form of their code versus the function of their code, as well as the programmer time versus computer time. They also did a lot of discussion around adapting existing code across tasks. There was also a lot of discussion around like the visualizations that they would create, including the tools that they use, for example, ggplot. They also engaged with the data file format differently. So they had an unconventional format, a .dat, and there were many different approaches on how that was read into R. And then also how the data, how they dealt with an underlying hierarchical classification. And then finally, they all discussed their perceptions of computational thinking. And so we looked at these themes and we have proposed an initial framework. We consider it a living framework, and this is just from what we've noticed, right? The interplay between computational thinking and how they work with data, but also noticing how the resources that they have whether it's through classroom, whether it's through their personal experience, how this can also impact both of those pieces. And so I know that was a very, very quick summary, but I would like to thank you all for listening. I know this is the last talk of the day, so really appreciate it. If you would like any of those references, I can go back to this for the computational thinking stuff. Otherwise, that's my email, and I would love to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Alyssa, for ending on such a positive note.
Maybe you said this, but did they have access to a web browser while they were coding?
Yes, so that's a great question. So when they were doing the interviews, we told them to interact with their computer exactly how they would, as if they were doing some assignment, like an open book. And so somebody even mentioned, well, I might use ChatGPT. Can I do that? So if that was something that they would usually do in their workflow, we said, go ahead. And they were able to access notes or anything they wanted.
Cool. But you weren't recording what they, or did, I guess as a coder, were you recording, are they on ChatGPT or are they on Stack Overflow, whatever, as the experimental coder?
Yes. Yeah. So that certainly went into sort of that resources piece. And so we definitely looked into, for example, if they use ChatGPT, that came up once. Other times we would ask them, because sometimes they would start using packages or they would start pulling code from elsewhere, and we would ask them, hey, is this something you've seen before? How did you know about this? So that was all stuff that we included.
Cool, thanks.
Yep.
If there are no other questions, I guess that concludes the end of the lightning talk session.
Thank you.